The podcast you are about to listen to contains at least one of the following: strong language, disturbing topics, abusive opinions, generally things that aren't appropriate for little kids or overly sensitive people. So, if any of that stuff's going to get your nose out of joint, this is your chance to turn it off. Welcome to I Had to Say It, the podcast where I talk about things that I feel need talking about, and sometimes they're not getting the attention they deserve. And your feelings, they're not under consideration. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of I Had to Say It. Today we are going to be talking about a few different things. This is going to be a little bit shorter episode, probably. I know I say that a lot of the times and then wind up going long anyway, but we'll see where we wind up. I guess we're going to start out this episode with a few housekeeping things. The first thing I wanted to talk about is, real briefly, I've decided we're going to start doing a newsletter. If you have any interest in receiving that newsletter, go to ihadtosayitpodcast.com, and there'll be a spot where you just click your email, click submit, and it's going to be once a month. It's going to have information, links to stuff I've talked about in the episodes. I'm going to probably throw some recipes in there, something that's relevant to the month, things like that. Just trying to have a little fun, create a little engagement. The second thing I wanted to mention is that there is an engagement form on that website, and I would love to hear from you guys, from the people that listen to the show. I know there's got to be things that you have certain feelings about or feel a certain way about, and maybe you want to know what I think about it too. So I would really love it if you would just take the time, go fill out the form, shoot me an email, whatever's convenient. Find me on social media. Anyway, I'm not hard to get a hold of if you really want to. The second thing I want to talk about now, the last couple of weeks I was talking about the Discovery 2022 event that Jason Stapleton was putting on. I did go and sit through it, and I shouldn't say sit through it. That makes it sound like I didn't enjoy it. It was actually a very informative, and it didn't feel like it was as long as it was. There was some really good information in there, some really good material, some good ways to, kind of check your perspective and get yourself moving towards establishing yourself. Figuring out why you haven't done it. Asking yourself the tough questions you need to ask to be successful and to make something of your life. And what do you actually want out of life? What do you want to change? What do you value? What's important to you? It's just kind of a guideline. It's a map. It's not a magic wand. It's not a magic bullet. You're gonna have to put in some work, but there's some good stuff there. And he did post the replay of the Discover 2022 event, and I'm gonna put a link to that in the notes. So if you missed it and you wanted a chance to check it out, or if you're having second thoughts and you wish you would have signed up, and you should have been there. It was a good time. They had a little chat thing going with all the people that were watching and listening, and yeah, you missed out, but you can still see what happened. And yeah, you can't do the active engagement part of it, but you can still get a lot of good information. So the link to that will be in the show notes. I really recommend you check it out. And if you haven't listened to his podcast or followed him or looked into the Nomad Network, again, these are not things I'm being compensated to say. This is not any kind of, tit for tat or anything like that. It's just something I actually believe in, and I think you should go check it out. I think it would behoove you to invest 15, 20 minutes of your time and just go look at it. Make up your own mind. Make your own decisions. Decide what's important to you. But it's something I really think you should go check out. So anyway, I'm sitting down to record this episode. We're coming up on the end of the year, and a lot of the other shows I listen to are doing, retrospectives, and a lot of the social media platforms are like, hey, look at your year in review. Looking back on what you did this year, looking back on what you've posted, looking back on what you listen to if you're listening through a different, music, online streaming services, Spotify or whatever, or Apple Music. They're all, here's your recap, here's everything, here's where all your time went this year. And all these recaps and looking back at things and trying to decide the who's, the what's, the where's, the why's. Where did this year go? I've heard a lot of people saying that it feels like the year went by in a blink. And maybe that's because a lot of us spent most of last year doing a whole lot of nothing. Sitting around waiting to be told we can go back out, waiting to be told things are going to go back to normal. There was a lot of shit going on in the last year and a half. And it's been a lot of different things for a lot of different people. It's been messed up. I mean, the constants are still happening. The politicians are still full of shit. They're still lying to us on a regular basis. They're still spending our money, doing all the things that really have no direct business with what they're supposed to be doing in the terms of, handling the affairs of this country. They are taxing us to death. They are causing, hyperinflation through just piss poor management, and yet they keep getting elected. And I'm sitting back here and I'm looking at all the social media platforms, and I've added to my social media intake, which is something I'm honestly not super thrilled about, but seems to be a necessary evil to a certain extent. And I'm just doing sort of my own personal retrospective and looking back on things. And over the last year, I've made some pretty cool acquaintances and done some cool little collaborations with other podcasts. And if you've missed those, I've had people on my show. I've been on a lot of other shows. I'm always willing to do more. If you happen to have a show and you listen to this one and you want me to come on yours, again, shoot me a message. I'm always up to do something. I've become a regular contributor to a couple of programs, actually, and it's fun. I enjoy it. I've found a lot of people in this world are apparently a lot more like-minded to me than I would have initially thought. But I take heart in the fact. I find some hope in that maybe we're not completely frickin' doomed yet. I'm not entirely sure we're not doomed, and not necessarily due to the shit that is people have been saying since I was a kid is the shit that's going to be our downfall. Climate change and yada, yada, yada. And pollution, which is a horrible thing. And I'm not saying climate change is not happening. The weather has been ridiculously erratic for the last few days. We had a huge tornado come through and tear up parts of Kentucky, and it was like a touchdown. It was touchdown for like 200 some odd miles. Just ridiculous levels of destruction. But they're, silver lining kind of scenario. It's given me hope to see people like mobilizing and trying to go out and help these people that have been royally fucked over by this tornado. And, social media being used for good to activate and mobilize these groups of people and collecting supplies and funds, and people are donating to go help, and people are donating their time. With a lot of people that are still not working, they've got time, so they're donating it to go help out these people, random strangers who got completely fucked over by Mother Nature, reminding us our place on things. And I've been looking at different things on social media, and I know there are a lot of people out there who don't agree with me. A lot of people out there who think I'm an asshole, and I am. I'm not apologizing for it. I've seen some things that are really starting to spark some hope in me, where the silent majority, the people who are more like of mind to me, people from all walks of life and all ethnic and religious and orientations and every kind of background you can imagine, that are finally stepping up and saying, you know what, we're sick of this shit. We're tired of you little minority of people who think you yelling the loudest and being the most ridiculous are somehow right because you're the most vocal, and the rest of us just want to get along. And it's amazing to me, again, people from every walks of life coming out and saying, we're sick of you and your divisive bullshit policies, and you and your divisive bullshit attitudes, and you're arguing, trying to create things that are tearing people apart. We don't care about this shit. It doesn't matter to us. It matters to you, and that's why we're happier than you are. A bunch of miserable little fucks that are busy getting hung up on bullshit because they have no real problems in life. They're not in survival situations, so they need to create drama because otherwise they realize how fucking worthless they actually are. And it's a beautiful thing. I think it's fantastic that I'm seeing all these things. And maybe that, to a certain extent, that's, social media's logarithms going, hey, this is what this dummy wants to see. This is what's going to hold his attention. But the backside of that coin is it's connecting like-minded people. It's connecting all the people that are getting sick of all this bullshit and are finally getting to the point where they're ready to do something about it. Now, on the other side of that coin, I see a lot of people that are, whether they be retired military or just general preppers. There's if you've listened to the show any extended amount of time, you realize I'm really not a fan of extremes for the most part. There's a few things where I'll admit my personal beliefs may be a little extreme. Doesn't mean I think they're wrong, but I'll acknowledge they may be a little extreme. Wanting to know exactly how finely a wood chipper will process a pedophile. To some people, that may be a little extreme. To me, it's more a question of practicality and what kind of maintenance is going to be involved. And, to a certain extent, it's satire, people. It's not meant to be taken seriously. Wink, wink. Pedophiles are subhuman. As soon as you cross that line, you ruin a child's innocence. You no longer are human, and you don't deserve the dignity that goes along with it. I would not have any compunctions about feeding you into a chipper shredder. Cheers. Feet first, guys. Remember that. Feet first, so you can watch the look on their face. I make these statements, and all of a sudden I'm seeing a whole lot of other people echoing that sentiment, and it gives me hope. It tells me that the people that were being so vocal about trying to normalize this reprehensible trait, the people who are trying to make it acceptable and okay to be pedos, they're starting to realize, you've pushed too far. You've gone too fucking far. And now there's going to be backlash. Now there's going to be repercussions. We are not taking your shit anymore. And the Maxwell trial is still going on, and there's not really been a peep coming out about what's going on with that, because the judges are saying, it's too inflammatory and all this other shit. They're giving a lot of excuses about why we don't need to know what's going on behind the closed doors of that court. Realistically, enough of society's aware enough to go, you know what? You're not doing it to protect us. You're doing it to protect the fucking people she's naming. You're doing it to keep your buddy safe. There's a lot of guilt through complacency in this. There is a lot of people, because people in power and people of wealth and people of means are the ones that are finally getting called to the carpet by this. If they fall, anybody in the system's vulnerable. So the system is going to do what it's going to do to protect them, and I'm not saying it's going to end any which way, but I could totally get behind that being the straw that finally broke the camel's back and made the average person who is not a sick fuck that thinks they're entitled to those kind of things finally snap and say, enough's enough, and we've had it with you guys, and we're going to pull you down and make you accountable. Just because you're rich doesn't make you better or any more worthy of being able to do horrible shit than anyone else. And there are people out there that are capable and trained, and some who specialize in doing horrible shit to people. Whether you like it or not, there are some people that don't deserve mercy. They deserve to have horrible shit done to them because they've done enough horrible shit to warrant said treatment. But I'm getting off track here. Yeah, so the various things I've been seeing on different platforms, and it's not just one platform, so it's not like I'm just going to, you're just going into echo chambers. No, I'm going all over the place. And I've also seen a lot of shit that breaks my heart. I've seen a lot of shit that makes me worry about the future of the planet. It makes me worry about what kind of world my kid is inheriting from us. It makes me worry about what kind of world will my potential grandkids grow up in. I still see, creepy middle-aged fuckers making inappropriate comments on, early teenage girls' posts on social media. And fortunately, there's a lot of people out there that are calling these assholes out and telling them, stop, we see you. And that's a good thing, but it doesn't change the underlying fact that it's still happening. And that kind of stuff worries me. And there are still tons of people that are way too convinced that they've bought in so hard to this, two-party nonsensical horseshit that this country has become, and they're convinced that one party or the other, I don't care which side you're on, the left, the right, both sides have been fucking the middle over for generations at this point. You can't keep doing the same shit and expecting a different result. And there are so many people out there that are still in that mindset of, my side would be fixing the world if your side wasn't getting in the fucking way. And the problem is, there's twofold problems there. The problem is that's assuming that your worldview is the only accurate one, which is fucking wrong. I don't care what your worldview is. You're fucking wrong. It's not the only way to look at the world, and it's not the only thing that's right. And you need to remember, when we were little kids, they used to teach us how to share and how to play together. I don't know what they're teaching little kids now, but I'm sure it's much less useful because look what's fucking coming out of the system. And we need to get back to that. We need to start working together. We need to stop doing this partisan shit. And I see tons of social media accounts, particularly with younger people, because they're the assholes that have bought into this, where they're doubling down on this shit. It's gone from, you go 2 generations back and we could look at things and say, this is what's best for everybody. This isn't exactly what we want, but it's how we all get at least some good. And this just horseshit, ridiculous extremism that is just all over the place. That's what's really got me worried. And I've seen a lot of things where there's a lot of people getting fed up with it. And I've seen some things that it just tells me how out of touch some people are. There are people talking about maybe it's time for the U.S. to break up. I've seen people make memes and jokes about how the United States of America needs a divorce. And we went through this once before. And the funny thing is, it's gotten to the point where there are... The mindsets have kind of gone the left and the right and, the red, blue, however you want to look at it, where all the blue states seem to think that the red states can't do without them, and the people that are on the far left of the political spectrum seem to think that the people on the far right won't be able to deal with not having them around. And I have literally seen people saying, "Oh well, we don't need you guys. We don't care about you guys. We're going to take our ball and go home." And then they can't deal with the fact that the more conservative side of things, the right and the center at this point, people that are more like me, that don't give a fuck about political affiliation, they just basically want to be left the fuck alone, are so sick of this. Well, you need me. No, the fuck we don't. I don't want to see things fall apart. I don't want to see it break down to some sort of armed fight or another civil war or any of that shit. I wish we could all just act like grown-ups and do what's best for all of us instead of eating all the bullshit we're being spoon-fed and saying, us versus them and blah, 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 blah. Dance puppets dance, and don't look over here. Don't pay any attention to that man behind the curtain. Don't pay any attention to the people who are working together to make sure we stay opposed to each other. But on the other side of that coin, when you have the people that are staunch supporters of gun control and all this, have no working knowledge of firearms, or they don't understand gun laws in the United States, or I see a lot of people who have really no grounding in reality saying, well, what are you going to do if the Civil War comes your way? And not realizing, and again, I'm primarily speaking to the left because everybody knows the right is much happier with their firearms. If you're on the extreme left trying to threaten people with a civil war, you need to stop and take a good think about things, because they're ready. You're not. You guys are going to need time to get organized and time to get armed, and you're going to try and acquire something so you can show them what's what. Meanwhile, you're talking about a bunch of people that have been preparing for this shit for most of their lives. And if you're dumb enough to think they're going to wait for you to get ready and it's going to be fair and it's going to be, oh, wait, time out, we need to go again. We need a do-over. You're going to find out real fast why that everybody gets a trophy shit doesn't work in the real world. Because you're going to get steamrolled. And I've even heard people like extreme lefts. There's actually a staff sergeant in the military. This woman is going around. She's an avowed communist, which technically is in violation of her military oath. So she should be in the brig. For some reason, she's still posting TikToks. And she's talking about how she's going to, if there's martial law implemented, she's going to be making sure that we are domestic terrorists and we will be the enemy of the United States government. Somebody's going to take her out. And it's going to be probably a retired sniper or something. Somebody that's going to come out of the woodworks, or possibly just a hillbilly. I love the hill folk. I really do, particularly these days, because they don't have any patience for this shit either. They just want to be left alone to live their lives. That's honestly what I think a lot of us want. We just want to be left the fuck alone. I know that's what I want. I want to be left the fuck alone. I'll leave you alone. You leave me alone. We'll get along just fine. And, so that's pretty much where I'm going to button it up. The next couple episodes, hopefully I will have a little more time available. Things have been kind of nuts for me in the real world this week. But I've got some downtime coming up, and so hopefully I will be able to have them a little more concisely thought. Got a couple last guest episodes. I might try and get a couple bonus episodes in before the end of this week. I've got a couple other shows coming up that I will be guesting on. I will be working that into the social media posts and stuff. And, take care of each other. We need to do better. We need to be better. And for now, that's what I had to say. Thanks for listening to another episode of I Had to Say It. If you liked what you heard, leave a review, give us a follow, give me some feedback. And if you didn't like what you heard, leave a review, give me a follow, give me some feedback. I'll try and fix it. Check us out on all the social media platforms. At I Had to Say It podcast is the trigger for all that stuff, for the search term. And if you want, check out the website, www.ihadtosayitpodcast.com. There's links to people that have been involved with the program, things I've talked about. There are some links available for some merch that we're working on, and there are ways to contact us there as well. And thanks for listening, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.